Well, hi everybody. No Frank Zappa music today, just kick us off, but welcome to our summer episode of Virtual Events Group monthly meetup. We will not see you in August, but we have a big surprise for you in September that we'll tell you about later. But today, first of all, if you are think you're in the hottest place in the world, just put your temperature outside in the chat window. And we're going to have a contest and send water your way. 90 in Boston. Okay. About 90 in New York. Gigi, I think you got a good one. 95 in New York City. 108 in Houston. Okay. Anybody who does not believe that climate change is real can a cool 70 in Sonoma. Oh, all right, we're all over for dinner. But and Marianne, our first speaker, has the tragedy of speaking to us from Italy today. So before it gets really dark where she is, we're gonna move ahead, but glad that everybody's keeping somewhat cool. So today we are going to talk about lessons learned during the pandemic. And we really want you to be involved in this discussion as well. We have a couple of polling questions, but really what we learned in the pandemic that is transferring to our lives now and what we forgot. And so I had this image this morning. Remember that sign in your rear view mirror of your car? Things always appear closer than they seem. And that was sort of the image that is in my head. The pandemic still, to me, not just feels really close, but feels that things changed dramatically from the BC world before COVID to the post-COVID world. And some of the things are a new demographic, a new cohort of people who go to events and meetings, people who've gotten used to working hybrid, AI tools, and this all happened sort of simultaneously. So we have three incredible guests today. Marianne Pierce, many of you know from Map Digital, coming to us from the Dolomites today. Dahlia El Gazzar, who many of you know from Dahlia Plus, and Michael Hiskey, who many of you know from Engagez, a fabulous events platform. And but before we do anything, we created a little movie to entertain you and hope that we take you back to some of the more connected moments of the pandemic. So see how you feel and if this jars any memory. Carrie, can you play that?
And of course, I couldn't be prouder of all of you in the graduating class of 2020, as well as the teachers and the coaches, and most of all, parents and family who guided you along the way.
Mr. Cotton, I believe you have a filter turned on.
The all-digital CES 2021 pushed top companies from around the world to show off their cutting-edge technologies in a new way.
thanks, Carrie. Let me just skip back here. Again, tell you, you're really in for a treat today. We're going to ask you a few questions. And mostly, I really want to know, what did that little video make you think of? To me, it reminded me of the Ed Sullivan Show. Like, we always watched it as a group together, and there were Sunday night with my family growing up, and the pandemic had moments like that pulled us together. And the Obama graduation and the cat judge, one of those. So at any rate, moving on, we're gonna anybody want to talk about something that was particularly evocative to them? We'll spotlight you. Hands up. Then we'll ask your opinion. And the question is, and you can put your answers in the chat window and just free form it. If you don't want, you can answer yes or no. Did the pandemic change the way you think about events? 2 answers. Yes, I'm more selective and I expect more when I get up and travel to an event. Nope, I'm just happy to get the hell out of the house. And what are you thinking? Up. I see the yeses. The yeses are more selective. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Well, that one's almost not. I see one nope, but I get enough. Okay. Well, that one's almost unanimous. Next one. What was the single most important change for you in terms of events? And that could be as an event creator or as an event attendee. I've become more agile about how I create and attend them. Events seem more important to me and my company than ever. And I learned a lot of new tech tools. Let's see some answers. Yeah, it was a tech tool learning experience for sure. So with that, speaking of tech tools, I'm going to turn this over to Marianne Pierce, who probably had to pivot faster than anybody to get her event launched when the pandemic started, but has come out, as she says, waltzing, and had learned so much about what people really want going into this next generation of events. So Marianne, why don't you tell us a little bit from your perspective?
Yeah, I'd be delighted. And first of all, thank you so much. It's so great to be on this panel with Michael and with Dahlia. And I see some real good friends in the attendee list. So great. Hope it's a real good discussion. I think we all learned something from a different point of view. Just to give you a quick background, I mean, we've been digital for over 25 years. I've had a webcasting platform since 2000 because we work in the financial services. So the only real trouble, or the thing that we had when we realized we were being locked down, like on March 8th, was that we had to be able to get the webcast video feed, not from the back of the ballroom, but from a Zoom. So it was a couple lines of configuration. Our clients didn't drop one meeting. They had the same platform, our MetaMeetings platform. We just acquired the speakers from a Zoom, a Blue Jeans, a telepresence. So it was a different level of stress, but the show went on for us. And then we expanded in 17 lines of business in every time zone. But we'll get to that a little bit later. What we learned from it, we thought we knew everything. That's why we were digital for such a long time and in the clouds. And I have a direct marketing background. I used to work for Wonderman. So I thought, hey, we got this all down. We learned so much more. We also learned to watch other people, have huge amount of empathy. I think we all got that, learned to partner much better and much more listen skills and see how we could be helpful. I think what we really realized that from my point of view, we were gathering all this great content data. Who watched what webcast, who watched it live on demand, downloaded content, behavior, this kind of metadata. This investor was downloading the slides for about, let's say technology stocks when we were selling him pharmaceutical stocks. And our salespeople and our banks didn't care about that. They thought their relationship going to the golf course was enough. When they had the steady diet of just our content data, they got religion. I couldn't sell data before the pandemic. After the pandemic, they could not get enough of it. So much so, when we went back on site, they insisted on doing RFID in our largest event, which is 14 concurrent track rooms, probably about 35, 35 doorways. I mean, 10,000 people. I mean, they wanted that data so much to make that kind of expense. And we're seeing that not just in the financial services, but in the pharmaceuticals. The data you got in virtual, who watched what, who did this, all that behavioral stuff, to replicate it on site, as Dahlia will tell you, as knows from a producer, is extremely expensive because it was in the platform now. But our clients, who the sales that move the needle, they find that to be valuable. And we're actually doing a hell of a lot more RFID than we ever anticipated we would do. So our clients got very savvy in the digital space. They got very savvy in data, and they wanted more and more and more. And they were willing, because I'm very lucky, we work at the top echelons of financial services and pharmaceuticals. They were willing to play more because they could see the business evaluation, the business case right there. The second thing that we learned, which was really surprising to us, but actually made us feel really good, I happened to encounter the head of sales of a major bank who would never have acknowledged us in the past, even though we do these wonderful things, but we actually kept their investment banking conferences going, even one that was supposed to be on site and then had to turn virtual in less than 15 business days, with 630 live sessions that became webcast sessions. So it was a pretty big task. So for about 5 minutes, we were heroes. So while we were the heroes, I went up, well, he came up to me and I said, what can I do for you now? I mean, now that we've done this, is a perfect time to upsell your client, right? So I'm going, do you want, artificial intelligence? Do you want metaverse? Do you want machine learning? Do you want like moon rocks on Mars? And he just looked at me, he goes, I don't want any lines. Now that we're back on site, when these attendees come back under our house, I want to surprise and delight them. So when the conference that has 10,000 attendees, he goes, I don't want to see any of my investors or my clients in any line. So that was, we're like, great, we've been wanting to do this for a long time. That's when we developed our product called Fast Pass Badging, where we basically use the best of technology to fuse and to simplify that badging process with QR codes, not only going through the email, but also printed on the MetaMeetings platform that each attendee had, and various other ways of serving it up. So it's like, it's thoughtless for the attendee to get there. The other thing, since we're API'd into this client, we API'd into their meeting schedule. So that when the client was standing there getting their badge, they get their badge and their one-on-one schedule at the same time. So we compressed 2 lines. All of a sudden, people were skipping through the lines at our largest conference. Security guards asked us if we put something in the water. They'd never seen our attendees so happy. So there again, using technology and having your clients willing to spend the money, API, using a little bit more, a little more savvy, to make a better experience on site. We're seeing more and more of that, the compression and using partnering and actually, really using other platforms and making it better for the attendees. So we're delighted with that. The other thing that we've been playing with way before the pandemic, and then with the actual rise of AI machine learning, since we gather all this content, we do hundreds of hours of content on our platform, we have the video there. But what do you do with it after the event? And there's a lot of goodness there. And so coming from my direct marketing background, I go, these speakers, and they have great networks. So we started making snippets and we were doing them by hand. This speaker said this great point, and then, send it out on social media. LinkedIn is a lightning rod, a tentpole for building community for your conference as a post-event. But it was so labor intensive. It would take 3 people, 2 days, all of that kind of stuff, waiting for the transcripts to come, until we discovered machine learning. And we're working with one of a company out of Ireland called Gist. In fact, I'm in part of a Angels network, and we're actually one of our companies. And we just send the videos to them, and they give us video summations within, 20 minutes. And from that, we build the snippets to go out and sent out to LinkedIn or wherever. Also to post those little video summations on the on-demand. It's very helpful for the medical meetings, so the doctors want to have summations. They don't want the whole thing. And what happens is that we did it for this conference, which is the second half of it here in Valbruna. It's a global SDG for women, basically. But now it's agriculture, and there's some men here, which is nice. But talking about sustainable development goals, we had such great thought leadership, and there was in the UN, and there was like 25 people in attendance. But we took those video snippets and we sent them out there. And some of our speakers, like Shelley Zalas, has 65,000 people on LinkedIn. When she said something, when her snippet went out, we were trending. Within 2 weeks, we had 200 followers. We had 25 live attendees. And those followers were incredible, heads of foundations. And they continued to be our network. And then from the LinkedIn site, they went back to the MetaMeetings website to look at more content. We created this content continuum that was going on and still goes on today, and no paid advertising. So imagine if we put a couple $1,000s in there, what kind of community we could have built by extending the thought leadership. Once again, in a platform, the video was there, knock the door on the machine learning. So all the systems, APIing, and make it simple, not downloading and uploading and running it across town with the courier. Let the software do the heavy lifting. And the last thing I want to say about times like this, we had 9/11, which put my former company out of business in 15 minutes, thus Map Digital was born. Then this pandemic happened, and when we realized that our events were being canceled, my team was incredulous. I said, well, wait, let's work the problem, deploy, when in doubt, deploy. We didn't know if there was going to be a Monday. We sent webcasting stations to 10 people all over the country who were working from their kitchen tables. Did we have a plan? No, we just did it. We didn't know UPS would be running or not. Next thing, we're working 24/7 in every time zone. Did we have a Harvard business study to go by? No, we just did it. It is your team, your talent, your flexibility, and the trust that our clients had in us. So I think all across the board, we learned great lessons that we can do things much greater than we ever thought we could if we're in the right team. So I have to say that is what we learned. And we're moving forward, and we're extremely excited to be back on site. Of course, we were born hybrid before it was called hybrid. So, we're ambidextrous, put it that way. But what we're really loving are our clients now are a little more sophisticated and understanding with data and customer experience or attendee experience is improving their business, and they're learning how to articulate it. And we can't wait to help them and to service them. So that's it from Valbruna, India. I'm not in India, I'm in Italy.
Close.
Yeah, it's far away.
But the takeaway, data, snippets of information, and no lines ever again. Or
Customer, attendee at the center, constantly the attendee at the center.
Anybody, any comments, thoughts? If not, I will put up, let's see, our next polling question. I think that was the last polling question. Okay, what behaviors have you noticed that have changed since live events are back? The food is healthier. People drink less. There is less focus on session after session and more on experiences and memories. Or did something change and I missed it? Did nothing change at all? And that's going to lead us into our next speaker, who's going to make some thought-provoking, powerful questions about whether we've changed or just forgotten things ever existed. Any thoughts? Put them in the chat window. And I will introduce you to Dahlia El Gazzar. Dahlia Plus is a fabulous agency that strategizes with all sorts of events, event creators, event planners. And Dahlia, I think you have your headline right above you.
The ringmaster of the shit show.
The shit show. Once a week.
That's actually your title, Robin. We just like I'm pretending to be you today.
I don't think so. I think you have a lot to say, but seriously,
Yes.
Dahlia and Michelle Bruno and one other person most of the time are on the shit show every week and really look at things with a jaundiced eye, and that's being kind. So Dahlia, take it away. Tell us what you're seeing now that we're rear view mirroring it.
So so we're post-Corona coaster, and we're still feeling actually not only what happened during the Corona coaster or COVID, but even before then. And I'm going to play devil's advocate because I'm really good at it, and someone has to do it on this session, where I will say there are not enough lessons learned. There is not enough change that has happened. And I would love to know in the chat from everybody, if you are independent, if you have your own agency, if your own services, for example, or if you are within an event organization. What we see most often with our clients is there is a huge desire for change. There is a huge desire to make more money, to actually try to recoup money and revenues that were lost during the Corona coaster. And yet when we go into design mode or we go into analysis mode, and we take a look at data, like for example, Marianne does with her clients, then again, Marianne is very special because Marianne, nobody can say no to. So she's in a unique, amazing spot. But we're talking about like organizations on the association side, organizations that have been doing events the same exact way that they have, like the trade shows, the floor plans, etc., where the desire to change is there, and yet they don't take the leap or they're not agile enough to do that. And for example, when we take a look at an organization and the events or the event portfolio that they have, we question a lot. We act as 3-year-olds and we keep asking why. Why are you doing it the same? Why is your program the same amount of hours? Why is it breakout after breakout? And why are you not really lending yourself to white space for different types of audiences or different types of content consumption or different types of attendees, like, you know, neurodivergent or introverts or first timers? You can't have them be in breakouts the same as it was. And so this is where we start questioning. Usually what also happens is not everybody's on the same page on an organization level. Your C-suite is trying to recoup revenues. They're trying to reduce costs. They don't understand that for you, in order to change experiences, you need to do things differently. And you need to shake things up, like Margaret is saying. Damn right, you need to shake things up. But the problem with that is you are talking about people that have a fear factor. They are fearful of shaking things up. They are fearful of changing a format that they think always worked. What they don't understand is the Corona coaster actually gave us a launch pad of the change. People changed like their content behavior, the consumption of their binging behavior. Like, for example, and this is why everybody's like, be like Netflix. Well, you can't be like Netflix in an event if you've got it from 8 to 5, chock block full of one panelist or one speaker after another. And you also have to think of it from an experience side. So a couple of aspects is the strategy has to fit the desire of change, meaning the business goals and the revenue goals have to change. And there is a huge problem with that. The problem is there's organizations that potentially don't do enough data analysis or attendee behavior analysis or attendee desires and wants in order for them to serve new stakeholders than to serve themselves. Nobody said that a plenary session should cost a LED background of $250,000 because I'm going to keep you for 90 minutes to check out awards, a keynote, the president, the vice president, clapping, and a very dark room. Nobody said that unless they really, truly said, yes, we want that. So this is our time. And it's actually the most difficult time is the post-Corona coaster. The video that you showed us where we were, but there's people that like took that time, like Marianne, and decided to do things differently and blow it up. Right now, we have, I would say, a matter of 2 years. If organizations don't start blowing up or shaking things up in regards to attendee content, snackable content, the marketing has to shift, the white space has to shift, you know, all of that. And if they don't have the talent to support it internally, that's where they have to look otherwise. We have 2 years span to make sure those events are still going to deliver, or the event participants and the stakeholders are going to go elsewhere to find their spring of intel or their tribe that they would want to go to, or they would say, you know what, I'm not going to that annual anymore. I'm going to go with Marianne and 25 other people and have a think tank in Italy and create my own experience. And so this is where you need to tap into, not the same old, same old. And I say it, 24 months is actually being very generous. I remember when the media came to me and asked me, all right, March 5th, everything's closing down. When do you think things were going to come back as normal? And when I came to them and I said, well, maybe 2022, they said, we can't publish that. You're being negative. So what I try to do is I try to have people think of, what is the white space? What are the opportunities that you can gain right now? You have so much data, nobody knows what to do with it. But the best part is you can tap into your stakeholders. And for example, like on the exhibitor side, this is why they come back and they say they don't have an ROI. Why are you still pitching them a 20 by 20 when they can actually have an activation or have a retreat or have a summit with those 25 people, not be like sending them 25 million emails in the week prior to an event, and it will be an experience. So if you think of it from shifting strategy, think of it as shifting to new activations, new revenue opportunities based on insight, based on data, and then you layer it with the marketing, you layer it with the opportunities, you layer it with the content that makes sense to them. And more importantly, it has to be in mixed format content. Cannot be just a speaker on a stage anymore, etc.
Wow.
Is that too much?
That's a lot to digest. So be a little, I'm going to put you on the spot. Is there
Sure.
anything that you've seen, like
Yes.
post-pandemic, and you know, I cut people slack because everybody is trying, some people are still living off of commitments they had, you know,
Sure.
for booth space, and a lot remains to be seen. But anything you've seen that's really moved you, one, and two, do we have to reskill everybody on an events team to?
So reskilling has to happen no matter what. Us as event professionals are lifelong learners. So right now we are in the AI evolution. I'm not going to call it revolution. And this is where we should be upskilling at all times, whether it's the way we do things, whether it's technologies that can help enable us to do better, whether it is, even in sales, in negotiations, in creative design, we should always be upskilling. So that's one. Second is something that's moved me is those that do take a gamble. So for example, one of our clients is a publishing company, and they've always been an exhibitor and a marketing partner and a sponsor with an existing event. Then they slowly realized it's not serving them. And guess what? They went to, they came to us to design a brand new show. The fear was, are they going to piss off their partners that they've had for a million years? Yeah, you are. Are they going to succeed with their event? Well, you'll never know until you do it. And we helped them design a blueprint, something totally different based on the needs of the audience, their audience. And guess what? It's in 2024. They've already sold out. So this is where if fear is a factor for you or for your clients, you need to dispel that fear. Like, it's a fear of AI right now. Oh, AI is going to do this. It's going to take your job if you don't know how to use it. Or if you can't empower your attendees and your stakeholders to utilize it. But what I'm saying is, you have to get rid of the fear first. You can't do same old, same old. Do you need another example?
Well, I'm thinking about white space. What's everybody else thinking about? I am not a white space naturalist, so I really have to work hard on that part of letting things breathe. Yeah. Example would be great.
So thinking of white space is, for example, well, I mean, Margaret also, she's doing the event powered by AI, which is a great playground and a great example for others, probably to steal. So I'm going to say that outright. But like, for example, trade shows as an example. If trade shows are not serving the audience, and we've seen this where trade shows had to change design. You had to take it off of the usual floor plan and you had to break it up. One of our clients did that, for example, by instead of having their bellwethers and their exhibitors, their top exhibitors, say, no, we're not going to come to the show. We don't want a pavilion. We're not doing a 20 by 20 or a 20 by 30 or whatever. We want something different. So what they did was they created almost space on the show floor and in the networking spaces where you can rent a table, and you set pre-scheduled appointments, and you set the whole idea of like, meet me here during this time. And everything was designed as an event participant journey. Who's going to take notice? Who's going to say, well, I want this too? Who's going to say, I missed a scheduled appointment, I want more, etc. To a point where even the food stops and the drinks and all of that changed place. It wasn't in the outside hall anymore. It was embedded within that design. And so you have to take a look at, or have someone be at your event to audit. What's the traffic like? Where are people going? How do I furnish this? Classroom style, cancel. Like breakout sessions with the chairs and so forth, cancel. Do something different. People want something different. You want something different. Who wouldn't want something different?
Yeah, no, I love, one of the things you do that I kind of love is the concierge service. Like, just help me figure out, cut to the chase, which 5 exhibitors do I need to see? And Dahlia has done that really successfully. And I think it's another one of those gems that people can look to adopt. Tours of the show floor, but in a very different way, that are curated on a very personal level. And we have the tools now to personalize all of that.
I think that's the key, Robin, that what you just said right now is the whole personalization. And I think that's going to have to be very apparent and very different to every single attendee. And you have the capabilities now, not only from a tech perspective, but there is no reason for you not to personalize attendee journeys. But we've been talking about this for, I want to say, more than a decade.
Yeah. Yes. And it gets better. And I think the pandemic accelerated this whole move. And actually, I said this earlier, a new cohort of people who demand different things. They are just not going to be happy. Sometimes I like to slap them and say, you know what, I had to sit through this stuff. You should too. But what they want is to walk away with a memory, and to walk away with a feeling that something has changed. And I want to turn to Michael Hiskey, because Michael looks sort of like the way Dahlia does at events, but looks at the temporality of it. So why have an event when you can have a year of engagements? And so I want Michael to address what he's seen and how Engagez has learned to adapt to these new journeys. And Dahlia, thank you. You rock as always.
So I thank you so much, Robin. So just to give you my background, I ran conferences. I ran hundreds of conferences, mostly in the cybersecurity space. And it's my wife was 9 months pregnant. March 13th was a Friday, for those of you that remember. I was supposed to leave for Toronto the next day. And I had to call up my boss and say, you know, I don't think they might let me back into the country. So a week later, I now have a beautiful daughter. I was the last dad that was allowed in the maternity ward. That was all interesting. And we had switched our entire conference series to all virtual, like preempting the whole, as Dahlia said, like, well, wait, is it going to be 21, 22? When are we going back? So we learned a lot of stuff. Data was very important. So using the data, having the data, understanding what our attendees are doing on a material level sort of led to a lot of new thinking. So the clients I'm working with, for the most part, now I was a CMO for many years, so this is all new to me to be on the other side. They're very interested in understanding these mixed experiences. So just like we've all been in a meeting and said, you know, this could have been an email. Similarly, your attendees are out there and they're saying, you know, this whole event that I flew to Chicago for, some of this could have been done online. And that leads to this idea of mixed experiences. So my panelist colleagues have mentioned this idea of mixed experiences, and people now prefer the things that are detailed, analytical topics, training to a greater or lesser extent, the high intensity things, they kind of prefer the online part of that. Of course, networking will always be in person, and that's important. And I do love to have a cocktail in my hand while I'm chit-chatting with other people after the event or during the event. But what it's done wonders for, as we've mentioned, is this idea of digital equity. So neurodiversity, more demographics, or people that are just geographically far away. So all of that thinking led to what I spend a lot of time talking with organizations about today, and that is event organizers moving from this sort of temporal once a year or multiple times a year to how do I create consistent engagement with that entire community of people that extends beyond 3 days in August or whatever, and it could rain or snow that day. So a lot of organizations are thinking about that. What those organizations are doing is building digital campuses. So a digital engagement campus where they interact with their community day to day. So sort of started off with the idea of like an on-demand event that lasted forever, and then actually grew from there. So what else could I do that bridges my online digital and my offline experiences? And what we found was that people like to have this broader community idea, but to start way before they first meet in person. And bridging that sort of, connecting from the in-person experiences and the digital experiences, and then thinking about that audience as a whole, is what those event organizers, or now community organizers, especially associations, is what they're getting a lot of value out of. And that really leads to a lot more thinking. So that data, now coupled with, as we mentioned, AI, has actually broken down the barrier. So if you think about it, if I had sort of the ability to understand omnipotently what every participant in my now campus, so event, webinar, everything on my website, all jumbled into one, if I could understand everything they do and everything they touch and everything they even hover over, well, that would be, 5 years ago, that would have just been too many data points to even be interesting, right? I couldn't even fathom that. So bring in the onset of AI, and we could argue whether it's all there yet and whose jobs it's going to take, but that's not the point. Bring in the onset of AI, organizations are starting to kind of get this idea, especially I spend a lot of time with B2B enterprise kind of organizations like that, large software, large players. They're trying to understand that, if I can understand all that information, then it sort of goes beyond just the live events to integrate all the things I do that are part of the marketing process. And if I could get all that, I can kind of come up with a pattern, or a recipe, or a signature pattern that tells me why people buy, or why people choose to engage with me, or why they stay engaged, or whatever my goal is to get. I could start to measure. And then it's only a short hop to think about, well, if I can measure that, and if I can understand that, then pretty soon I could sort of retrofit that to sort of all of the other activities I do to figure out, how do I make engagement better? And then, sort of the final point I'll make, I think, is really important. I talked to a college professor, psychology college professor, that was part of the business school. And I said, well, what is engagement really? So engagement is the psychological state of fulfillment that a person feels from interacting with any kind of content. And that could be a movie, it could be an event, whatever it is. It's that fulfillment that we're trying to get the goal of. And when you kind of release the idea of the temporality and, you know, the hustle and bustle that we all do, trying to put the event on, is the coffee there? Is it raining that day? I did an event in New York once and there was a terrorist attack in the subway. Once you release yourself from all those things, you're really just sort of in the pure play area of how am I delivering engagement? How am I getting people more excited and more engaged with whatever we're trying to accomplish as a business?
Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot. Help us
I love being
engage
on-
our
I'm on the
audience.
spot right here.
I know Michael has a great trick to stay in place on the screen, but help us engage the audience. Let's find out how we can help in their journeys. They're all, I see who's on the thread, different people doing very different things. Anybody want to jump in and sort of share what they're seeing as a post-pandemic? Faye, I know you spend a lot of time in the metaverse in particular. The other thought that comes to me is there are all sorts of different meetings. I'm speaking to the Alibaba group next week, and it's about showrooming and shopping. I mean, that's the kind of meeting they want, and they want it to be international. And so I think that understanding what the meeting is, we're talking very generically about one kind of meeting, but yes, Faye, Dahlia writes, Faye is the diva of the metaverse. We won't call it the metaverse anymore. We'll call it the spatial verse.
Right. Immersive experiences, Robin. Dahlia, I love you. Just to chime in first, thank you for inviting me to this event. It's a fascinating discussion, and it's great to reconnect with old friends and new. One of the things that I'd like to share, and I welcome just in response to this and kind of to put out there, is that yes, Compro, just quick background on me, Compro is a B2B digital media platform, and during COVID, we had been doing events. We publish a weekly newsletter. Events were about 20% of our revenue and time, and during COVID, actually reversed. Events became 80% of the time in revenue. And we had been doing live in-person events, and then wham, COVID. And then all of a sudden, last year got into, and working with Dahlia, got into the metaverse, which is really exciting. We're doing it again. But all of a sudden, just out of the blue, these live events, the hunger, and some of the questions you asked about, Robin, now, and if I'm going off track, I'm sorry, and please stop me. But the hunger for networking and just connecting with people has made the live event experience that we're seeing explode. And the explosion that we're feeling and seeing right now, yes, doing the second metaverse event and all are invited, but also talking about artificial intelligence. It's just, I'm wondering if people are seeing that if you bring AI into the live event experience, we have had events where we've had to hustle and do webinars because we've run out of space for live events that are tied to artificial intelligence, reputation management, and such. And I'm just curious, in the different industry sectors that you're also experiencing this, that if AI is part of the equation, it just goes crazy. And one of the partners for a big AI event we did this year is Tweed Thornton, the Publicity Club of Chicago, Hey Tweed, where we had to stop selling to registering people.
Yeah.
So
but let's remember, we are lemmings by nature. We went through the NFT craze, which lasted about 3 months. We're like the Barbieheimer now. So we do things and then we forget they ever happened. So NFTs, the metaverse, we had our fashion weeks and our beauty weeks, and now everybody's sort of, walking a little backwards. I do think AI is fundamentally different. And I do think, to your point, it's going to cross every industry. And a couple of weeks ago in the newsletter, I listed like 50 AI shows that, events that are coming up. And I know when we talk about planning, is AI a separate track, or is it embroiled into it? And I think it's embroiled into everything that we do now. But I do have a theory I'd love to test out on all of you. Snackable content, I love AI for that. So I like taking things apart with AI, like editing video or editing text. I don't love building stuff with it because I think it's just not as good as I am. So
Thank God for that.
I have never written anything with ChatGPT that I've been, proud of, but I have edited everything.
Yeah,
for video,
you have to feed the chat. You have to feed the AI. I mean, if you're just doing chat GTP and they think, Robin, I mean, I did something where I think the chat, I had an ebook up there and they came back with almost my own phrases because they called it. So your machine's only as smart as what you feed it. Okay. And then if it becomes the machine learning, it remembers and learns. So I think that you're asking, a newborn baby to play Beethoven when you talk about AI right now. Okay. It will get better the more it's used. And then I think then when we go for the snackable bites, as you're calling them, or the searchable content, the more we feed it from our thousands of hours of content, of transcripts of events, of video, it gets super duper smart. It knows all those medical terms, as torvastatin and calcium plus. They know all these things now. So I think you're at the naissance of it. But I think you're right. The baby hasn't gotten to its first grade primer yet. But when it does, it's going to be scary.
Well, when it comes to AI, so I'm going to do this for a second, Robin. For those of you that are familiar with sort of the hype cycle, right? The AI sort of just rocketed up the sort of peak of inflated expectations, and we're all the way here now. We're going to get the trough of disillusionment, and that's just like a fact. That has happened 100% of the time, all the time, always, right? So I think as we sort of start to come down to reality, there's still this peak, this sort of plateau of productivity we have to look forward to, which is like, great, I'll throw everything in there. A lot of concerns about data. The information security officers I know are spending a lot of time worried about policies and what should they tell their staffers. That we've heard about data leakage. We've heard about even a hack on data that was pulled out of ChatGPT. But all of this notwithstanding, the people concerned about losing their jobs and people concerned about the world is going to change dramatically always happens as we sort of approach this peak of inflated expectations. But there'll be a dip and then there'll be this productivity. And I really look forward to that because the possibilities of the things we could do are really cool. And as always, just like all the automation that we've always been afraid of, it's not made the world, nobody really lost jobs. It's made the world better in terms of elevating the humans in the process to do brainier stuff.
So one of the things which, Robin, thank you for mentioning it, is the activations or the empowerment hubs that we do at shows, like the concierge. And the whole idea of a tech bar, or where you go to an event, and I'm not talking only for events that are for event professionals. This is across different industries, where you empower them with the knowledge as well as the understanding what they use from a technology perspective. And so we've done it where it's around technology, productivity. We've done it around brand, where, how do you own your own brand, the LinkedIn, route, et cetera. And we're also launching something new, which I'll put in the chat as well, where it is an AI exchange lab for any type of events. But this is, like you said, it has to be infused within the event. So it could be an event for construction, for PR wizards. It could be for healthcare, because AI is going to transform them the most. Could be for event profs, but it's really about practical understanding of AI, because for a lot, it's invisible technology. They don't really need to know how it works. They need to know what kind of ways they can implement it. Yeah. And when they can say no to it, And when they can say, I'm going to use it as a muse, like ChatGPT is a muse right now, or I'm going to use it for data analytics and it's going to be a co-pilot. But more so than anything right now, we need to create it as a safe, fearless playground for people to take a look at how it works. So we created this exchange lab idea. It's a plug and play where we go in, we can show practical uses, we can show uses for that industry or sector professional, if you will. So we do healthcare, we do financial professionals, etc. But the whole idea is let them leave knowing a bit more. When we used Tech Bar in the very beginning of the ages, it was to show them how to use their mobile phone so that they don't go and ask their 7-year-olds, how do I download a picture? So, so this is the evolution. It's not a revolution, and it's not to make them think that they're going to die. It's not about that. It's about empowerment.
Let's hope so. Yes, we're going to talk more about this in the fall, but I do think giving people permission, making it standard in your company for 20 minutes a day, you are going to play with these things. And a shout out to Alfred Poor, who's on the call, who's our tech editor, who built out a whole section of AI for communicators and events people. And we're still growing it. So it's on the website, and it's
He's blushing. You made him blush, Robin.
I can't see him, but he really took it and did a heck of a job, and talked about snackable content this week. So we're on it for the fall. And I know we only have a few minutes left, so I don't think I'm going to do any polls anymore, but let me just tell you, well, I'm going to do a lightning round, but due September, I can't tell you the date yet, but David Adler will be on the show. And I know many of you know him as the founder of BizBash. And before that, he had a storied career in a million other things. But he's written a book called Harnessing Serendipity. And it is really about how, and he interviewed 66 amazing people, some of which will hopefully be on the show. And we'll talk about how serendipity, which we're in a serendipitous moment now, how do you take that moment and capture it and use it? So if there are any last thoughts, I'm all about that. Any last thoughts from the audience? We will let you know about September. As always, we love when you sign up for our newsletter. It makes us so happy. Visit Virtual Events Group. Special thanks to Marianne from all the way in the Dolomites, and Map Digital, and everything you've taught us about resiliency during a pandemic. Dahlia, for your just ability to look around the corner and see what nobody else can see, even when it is a shit show. And Michael Hiskey, like, really thank you for standing up in your corner and sharing this idea of a community that's larger than any one event. So we'll see you all soon. I'm not even going to play you out this time. I'm just going to say, enjoy summer, be kind to your planet, be kind to yourselves, and don't let it get much hotter. Bye.